Welcome to the podcast, Scattered, One Person's Search for the Story Behind Human Remains. My name is Yvonne Chorlin. I'm a physical anthropologist and archaeologist. In other words, I like dead people. In this podcast, I explore topics related to dead people, from searching for human remains in forensic contexts to mortuary practices in modern and archaeological contexts, and everything in between. I offer information, perspectives, and insights directly from the mouths of researchers, as well as experiences of people who work with remains. All of this aims to provide you with information on subjects that aren't really talked about, don't seem to be a priority, or they can be very misunderstood. I hope you enjoy. It has been a hot minute since I last released a podcast episode. And that's not due to laziness. If anything, it's the exact opposite. It's been very, very busy. We have compiled and submitted part 2 of the scavenging study in Alberta article. Part 1 was released in November 2023, and that was about the scavenging guilds. Part 2 is about the dispersal of the remains due to scavengers. So I will give you some updates on that in a minute. As well, I have finished and released a third book. This is an Elise Marquette adventure. If you have read Memoirs of a Reluctant Archaeologist, my first book, same character, different time, different place. She's still very much Elise, badass, kick-ass, foul mouth, all of the above, everything that I want to be wrapped into a feisty little package, and I've decided to throw her into space. Yeah, just because, as a fiction author, I can do that. So, between the dispersal article and releasing a third book, self-published, it's been a little bit busy. Yeah, so the podcast has taken a bit of a back seat. And so I thought I'd record this episode for you and just reach out, connect, because I didn't know if this podcast would last. And it was started in September 2020, and all I wanted was 2 things from it: to increase awareness about the topic of dispersed human remains, and also to help disseminate valuable information about human remains, and that information was usually locked inside people's heads. Often valuable information, doesn't make it into accessible places. And if it is accessible, it may not contain all the really good, juicy stuff. It can be watered down or distilled to something that, doesn't quite hit the mark. And so I wanted to tap into that. And I wasn't too sure if it would work. By Christmas 2020, 4 months later, I only had a few episodes, and a lot of cold calling was falling flat. And people just weren't getting back to me. And I thought, maybe this isn't going to work. But then something happened, something very serendipitous. Dr. Shari Forbes in spring 2021 reached out regarding her scavenging study. She was doing a pan-Canadian scavenging study. This happened completely out of the blue. And it was exactly the kind of research that I've been trying to do for decades. Ever since I finished my master's in 2004. And so it was very kismet that all this was happening. So I started helping Shari with her research in Alberta. She was looking primarily at the scavenger guilds, and I really wanted to look into where the remains are being dispersed because of the scavengers. So she agreed that we could take my part on as well, and that was it. A research collaboration was born. So I recorded our process and preliminary results, and I put them in video. They're all up on YouTube now. 2 years worth. I think there's 16 from across Alberta. We've also got a couple from Saskatchewan, plus, a couple odds and ends from Lethbridge, all up on my website, yvonnechorlin.com/scavenging study. You can go there and have a look. And that was just to make our research methods transparent and accessible so that if you're listening and you want to replicate our study, please do. There is nothing hidden here. Please go out, do this study where you are, do it again and again and again, because replicating this study over a lifetime, you will probably get different results every single year. And we really do need to find if there are patterns and what the patterns are in the dispersal of remains so that we can increase the recovery rates, increase the amount of evidence that investigators and searchers bring back to close cases, and to give some closure for next of kin for those missing and murdered. So during the scavenging study, because I was doing all that, it also helped the podcast along. It helped me reach out to people. It helped give me content. And it just, in short, helped the podcast continue. Along the way, I met some freaking amazing people, and I learned a shit ton of fantastic information, all from deep inside their brains, from the guys in Colorado, Dan, Lyle, Kevin, Dave. You guys are awesome. Thank you. You were among the first on this podcast. Thank you for agreeing. Andrew Byrne in Australia, Lara and Dave in Switzerland, Alexandria, who was in the UK, who's now in the US, all over the world. And I was trying my best to keep that up. There's so many people researching in the area of mortuary archaeology, forensic anthropology, just talking about death in general. Death is a taboo, and we often don't want to talk about it. Yet there are so many people on the planet that are actively studying it. And I am so very grateful to everyone who I reached out to for agreeing to be on this podcast and for sharing your information, sharing your passion, and opening up and just talking with me. Thank you. Thank you to every single one of you. I am very grateful and indebted. I have learned so much, and I have grown so much, and I hope, listener, you have learned and grown as well. If this is starting to sound like a bit of a farewell episode, well, you know what? It kind of is, because like I said at the beginning, I've been really busy. It's been tough getting back to this podcast, and so I have decided to let it go for a little bit. But before we do, I'm going to give you some preliminary results that we have put in the dispersal article. So bear with me as I scan the article. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit from the abstract and from our results. If you're not familiar with the scavenging study, I'll just outline some elements here. So we put out over 2 years 16 dead pigs. And the reason we used pigs as human analogs because we can't put out human remains in Alberta. It's not allowed. So we used pigs, domestic pigs, as analogs for humans. So in 2021, in August, we put out 8 pigs, 4 in around Edmonton, 4 in around Calgary, and each of those 4 was in one of the following combinations: either rural open, rural closed, peri-urban open, or peri-urban closed. So either near the city or out in the country either an open canopy environment or a closed canopy environment. So where the sun would have, it would be getting direct sunlight or it wouldn't be getting direct sunlight. So open and closed, peri-urban, or rural. And so around Edmonton and around Calgary. So 4 around Edmonton, 4 around Calgary, 8 pigs. In 2021, we let them sit out, let the scavengers and the elements and the environment and whatever do their thing. And then the following year, we went and we searched for the remains. I mapped them all, measured all the distances, collected the remains, did an inventory, and then we did the same the next year. So 21 to 22, we cleaned up the sites, found new sites so that the scavengers wouldn't be habituated to where those pigs once were, and we put out 8 more pigs. Same thing, 4 around Edmonton, 4 around Calgary, peri-urban, open, closed, rural, open, closed. So 8 and 8, 16 in total over 2 years. And again, we left them out for a year, left them in August, went back the following summer, mapped, documented, collected them all, and then I did an inventory. And so what we found was that the mean or the average mean recovery rates of skeletal elements that we found were about 22.5%, 23%. And that ranged from finding just 2% of the skeleton, of the pig skeleton, to almost 67%. Okay, so we weren't finding all of the skeletons. So the scavengers were really having a time with them. When we searched, usually we had a bunch of people who had searching experience, they had forensic experience, they knew what they were doing, and then I would go along and also verify what they were finding. And we searched up to about 100 meters from where that pig had been initially placed, the original deposition point, or ODP. The largest maximum dispersal distance was 60 to 70 meters. However, in 2022, we placed trackers, little wildlife trackers, on all 8 pigs. So we drilled through the pig's a limb or their snout, and we threaded through a wildlife tracker so that if the flesh was eaten off the bone, the tracker would still be attached to the bone. And that would hopefully demonstrate if any remains were dispersed further than what we searched. And lo and behold, it kind of worked. In a couple of the sites, the tracker went 200 meters, went 140 meters. Some of the trackers didn't really move. However, it was enough to show that searching only 100 meters isn't enough. Even though when we did search, usually the majority of the remains that we found, all the remains that we found were within 100 meters. Okay, but it is possible, demonstrated by the trackers, that remains went a lot further than 100 meters. We also found that when grizzly bears went to town on a carcass, they really went to town. There was hardly anything left. We suspect, although we can't confirm because the cameras just didn't show, excuse me, that it's likely that the grizzly bear would come in, eat a lot of the carcass, move it, and then once they were done and they left, then feral or domestic dogs, coyotes, whatever, would then come in and have easier access to remains and be able to scatter the skeletal elements even further. So we can't confirm that. It is a suspicion. So that pretty much, in a nutshell, sums up what we found over the 2 years. Was there a difference between the closed and the open sites? Not really. Do we know why that is? No. Is there anything to be found? We don't know. It's one of those things where you do research and you just don't know. see, urban proximity, rural sites, dispersal distances at rural sites were a little bit bigger than at peri-urban sites, or those closest to urban centers. The difference was significant. Rural sites had about 11.5 meters compared to 2.3 at peri-urban sites. But the average maximum dispersal distance between rural and peri-urban was not significant. So that's still, with very small sample sizes, it's tough to see if there is a pattern and if that pattern is consistent and it's going to stay when you scale up. Who knows? So got to do some more investigation on that. However, it looks like the original deposition point, there is a pattern. I found this when I did my research for my master's in 2004, that the original deposition point has characteristics. And for those of you who've done some research or some reading, you'll know that usually the original deposition point, where a body is initially placed and is left to decompose, there's body staining from decomp fluids, and those decomp fluids then kill the vegetation. But also there's a higher frequency of ribs and vertebrae. And we found that in the scavenging study in this article, but also I found it in 2004, and previous studies like Haglund in the 90s found it as well. So we confirmed that in the scavenging study, which was lovely. That's pretty much in a nutshell. We're hoping to get that accepted. And when we do, I will put that on my website so you can go have a look at it. As well, my third book is out. If you're curious, it is now available through my website only. I will be releasing it everywhere except Amazon, because you know what, Jeff Bezos doesn't need any more money. Just for your information, for a $20 paperback that's sold through Amazon, I get less than $5 from that, because Amazon takes their royalties and also printing charges. So that's why I have released the book through me first. So if you want to support me in my work, please go to my website and buy my book there. It will be released on Amazon probably in the fall. But until then, feel free to come to my website and buy it. If you want to know what it's about, I will read you the back. So it's called The Main Gate, an Elise Marquette adventure. It's 2019. There's been another world war. Space travel is now a thing. Dr. Elise Marquette has been hired by an organization that aims to conduct first contact missions for corporate clients. With her experience in remote fieldwork, identifying the dead during the last war, and her ability to understand and adapt to any culture, she's an understated asset to her team's mission to explore the cosmos via the newly discovered portal, the Main Gate. But experience comes with a price. What makes Elise an asset also makes her a risk. 5 years isn't enough time to recover and heal the trauma she endured during the war. The recent death of her overbearing mother brings Elise head-to-head with a lifetime of unresolved childhood traumas as she's conducting Earth's initial first contact mission. Will Elise's past put her own future at risk? There you have it. There is the blurb for the next Elise Marquette adventure. If you want it, go to my website, yvonnechorlin.com. Pick up a copy, either paperback or ebook there. I'm working on the audiobook right now, so you can hopefully find that in the next couple of months. Until then, it's been a slice. I will leave the podcast episodes and the channel open. If you want to connect, please feel free to reach out. You can always tell me your stories. If you have a search story, if you've got an idea for the podcast, maybe sometime in the future, I will feel the need to Drop an impromptu episode because, I don't know, something exciting happened. You never know. Life is always a constant state of wonder. Until then, please continue to grow and learn, and I wish you well in 2025. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you find this podcast and the information in it useful, please do consider supporting the podcast by donating. You can donate through Buy Me a Coffee or by becoming a Patreon member for free or for as little as $1 a month. Links are in the show notes and on my website, yvonnechorlin.com. If you want to ask me a question, I would love to hear from you. You can reach out through my website at yvonnechorlin.com, my Facebook page, Reluctant Archaeologist, and through Instagram at Yvonne Chorlin. Reach out and tell me what you think of the show and what you're learning about dead people. Can't donate at this time? Then leave me a rating or review. And always remember to share this podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues.